Welcome to today's episode of Decentralized TV. I'm Mike Adams, the founder of Brighteon.com, which carries Decentralized TV. My co-host is Todd Pittner, who'll join us in a second with today's featured guest, who is Andy Schectman of Miles Franklin. Andy Schectman is one of the best communicators, most knowledgeable people in the world when it comes to global finance. And he was the one who sounded the alarm about the BRICS currency that was in play and in production. It's about to be announced, it seems, by, well, maybe 80 plus nations around the world that seem to have interest in doing something other than using the dollar. So, Mr. Andy Schectman, welcome to the show, and Todd Pittner, welcome. It's going to be an amazing show. Great to have you both on.
Hola.
Thanks for having me. Mike. Good to meet you, Todd, and it's an honor to be here, Mike. So looking forward to the discussion.
Oh, it's going to be red hot on fire, I can tell you, now that you're here, Andy. So Todd, this is the first time you're getting a chance to meet Andy Schectman, correct?
It is. I feel like I know you because I've watched so many of your YouTube videos, especially leading up to this. And yeah, Mike, pre-call, you called him the shot caller, so you can explain that a little bit about BRICS. Yeah,
well, Andy Schectman, if you don't mind me just doing a little intro for you, Andy. So not only are you the CEO of milesfranklin.com, you have long history in precious metals, retailing gold and silver, and a few other instruments related to that. But you were the first one that I remember hearing warning about the coming BRICS currency system for international clearing of transactions between nations that would challenge the global dollar hegemony. And now that has just come out in spades. So Andy, you have been proven correct again and again. You want to just kind of start off with that?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate the kind words, of course. I stumbled across this starting in 2019, and since late 2019 through today, I've done north of 1,200 videos, almost every single one specifically dealing with the BRICS and the ramifications of de-dollarization and the global accumulation of gold. And, I think you don't have to be overly astute, Mike, to see the crumbs that are being left. You just have to want to see them. You have to look. And of course, you have to listen to people like yourself. And I hope, I guess the term alternative media really, it should be called media. The media that we see on TV should be called fake news or news that is biased to a point that doesn't tell us anything. So in order to really see what's happening in the world, you have to dig, you have to research. And if your life is, in terms of how you get your news, is characterized by what you see on TV, even Fox News, you're going to be solely misinformed, and you're not going to be able to get out of the way of what's coming. So it's been an interesting run, and things are developing faster than I ever would have thought, Mike. So I'm excited to dig into it with you.
That's a really important point, that things are moving, in fact, much faster than some of what you warned about. And also, I want to say thank you. I think you put in a word for us with Robert Kiyosaki, who we had on the show. I want to thank you for that. He's just an extraordinary man, and he gets it. He totally gets it. He came on the show showing the dollar. He said, "This is toilet paper." And he says, I don't invest in anything that governments can print. Right, Todd? And wasn't it great to have Kiyosaki on as well?
He was fantastic.
Well, and
Kiyosaki, he's turned into a good
yeah.
friend. He's a great guy.
He really is. He's a great American, too. I mean, just a real patriot, what he's done for the country. But he has you on as a regular guest, and he speaks so highly of you because you get this more than anyone else. And so let me start off with this question. The speed of de-dollarization could surprise us because it's like, especially in trading oil around the world, but other commodities as well, aluminum, copper, whatever, grain, fertilizer. Every nation can make a choice, can make a different choice tomorrow. They don't have to use the dollar if there's an alternative that is less politically risky for them, right?
Absolutely. But I think the term or the phrase politically risky, another way of saying that is getting all of the ducks in a row to be able to offer something legitimate. I guess what I really mean by that is, everyone's focusing on the BRICS, myself included. It's a big deal. The formation of the BRICS alliance is massive. But what started me down this path was the Belt Road Initiative, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, gold being reclassified tier 1. But more than anything, it was paying attention to what was happening with Saudi Arabia and our relations with them. And to ignore Saudi Arabia when you talk about the BRICS is really only focusing on one half of the story. And you're right, the dollar hegemony really has come at the heels of protecting the Saudi kingdom and the deal that was struck in 1974 between the Saudi kingdom and Kissinger, where he said, hey, we're going to protect you, but for that protection, you're going to value oil in dollars globally. And it's been that way for 50 years. And that's created a synthetic demand for the dollar where, the dollar may not have been demanded if it weren't for the fact that you must hold it and accumulate it and stockpile it in order to buy energy. And it's been that way really since 1974. When I really started to pay attention to this was the day we left Afghanistan, and in a way that even if you aren't a former service man or woman, or even if you're not the most patriotic person in the world, if you just grew up in this country, you understand that the way that we left Afghanistan was an embarrassment. We're never supposed to leave anyone behind, and yet we left over 2,000 Americans behind enemy lines. And it was an embarrassment to see how it happened with people hanging from a transport plane. Well, the day after that, and there was no coincidence in this announcement, Saudi Arabia signed a joint military cooperation agreement with Russia. The day after that, Nigeria did the same thing. And the day after that, Russia and Putin announced to the world that his nuclear submarines were outfitted with hypersonic ICBMs. And that's what I mean by getting your ducks in a row. That was their way of saying, hey, don't even think of doing what you did to Gaddafi and to Saddam Hussein. This isn't going to work. And so,
but hold on, Andy.
In a row.
Before you continue, what you just said, our audience needs to understand. You're saying Saudi Arabia is essentially declaring to the U.S. State Department, don't you dare do what you did to Gaddafi. What our viewers need to make sure they understand is that the United States destroyed Libya and assassinated Gaddafi and did the same thing in Iraq over oil being sold or even being attempted to be sold in things other than dollars. So I just want to make sure that people understand.
Correct. That's exactly right. And it was a way for the world to understand that this was serious, that they meant business. And we should come back as we go through this to Iraq and the way that we went about that. We can talk about that a little bit later. But as time has gone on, since I started digging into this, the acceleration, and in particular of Saudi Arabia's movements and relationships has really grown. Let's just talk about a couple of them. Subsequently to, or since they've signed this agreement, they have formally applied to BRICS, and they are expected to be announced as a full-fledged member at the meeting in Johannesburg, August 22nd. They have also applied to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Now, in every single video, almost everyone anyway, that I've done on this topic, I would always talk about a few other groups, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union. And the reason I would bring them into the fold when I would talk about the BRICS was the fact that there was a lot of symmetry amongst membership in these groups, where Russia's in all of them and China's in several of them. And now Saudi Arabia, who along with every other OPEC country on the planet is on the Belt Road Initiative. They have formally applied to BRICS. They have formally applied to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And let's not understate the significance of that. It is the largest regional military and financial organization in the world. I mean, you got the Chinese army right there standing behind you. And they have also joined and applied to the BRICS New Development Bank. And maybe even most alarming was their admission at Davos a few months back, where they told everyone that, hey, we are open to listening to other countries who want to pay for oil in other currencies. So as you can see, not only are they moving away, but they are positioning themselves, in essence, being protected by two of the three largest nuclear arsenals in the world. And this
with
is what I mean.
hypersonic missiles too.
Yes. And you often talk about something called Operation Sandman, which I've got a lot of mileage off of, and I always give you credit for it. Every single time I talk about, Mike Adams talks about Operation Sandman. And in my mind, that is exactly what I have seen for a very long time, but not until the ducks are in a row, where countries say, hey, okay, we're no longer going to take dollars for oil, so let's dump our dollars. And that is when the rubber meets the road as far as the effects and the ramifications of this union, and really the end of Bretton Woods 2, the petrodollar, and into the new system, Bretton Woods 3, which is a system backed by commodities and transparency, which we can talk about as well.
Wow. How's that, Todd, for just sort of an introduction overload drinking from a fire hose of geopolitics and finance?
You remember that Bose commercial where the guy's sitting in his chair and
yeah, it's getting blasted.
Yeah, that's me right now. Andy Schectman. So your Miles Franklin Precious Metals, right? That's milesfranklin.com, just to let everybody know
correct.
That. Is the global monetary reset already underway, Andy? And if so, can you share who you believe are the puppet masters orchestrating this controlled demolition? Andy?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I've been going down a rabbit hole lately, asking a question: was this intended? I know that's a big statement, and that's a big thing to say, but let's just talk basics. And before we get into who may or who may not be pulling the strings, let's talk about the lead economic advisor for the United States government, for the Biden administration, is a man named Jared Bernstein. And Jared Bernstein is he's a fellow who has a degree in music, a master's degree in social work, and in inequality. He's someone who has no formal training in education anyway, on economics. He did spend some time in the Obama administration, but he is now the chief economic advisor for the White House. And his premise, his theory, and he's written about this on several occasions that have been picked up in the New York Times and in the Washington Post, the most famous being Dethrone King Dollar, where he talks about the fact that the dollar, that the exorbitant privilege that the United States has in being the world reserve currency is something that we can no longer afford, that we should take active steps in shedding the world reserve status, because it creates imbalances in trade, it creates distortions, it creates problems for the issuer of the world reserve currency. He's very adamant about this. And if you wanted to destroy the dollar's reserve status, the first two things you would do would be to weaponize the dollar. And we did that. We, as the world reserve currency, you shouldn't be able to tell people or countries who can and who cannot use it. And that brings me back to Iraq. We go into Iraq under the guise of weapons of mass destruction. We destroy the country. We topple the leadership. And sorry, we didn't find any, and everything's okay. And so the hypocrisy that the world looks at us as being very hypocritical, that is the rallying cry, I believe, or is what is creating the acceleration in the de-dollarization. And the second thing you would do would be to antagonize and push back against the Saudi kingdom. That is the linchpin of the hegemony. And what did Biden do right away when he stepped into office? He signed an executive order that we're going to be green. I think it was 50% by 2030 and over 85% by 2050. So if you're the Saudis and you see a weaponizing of the dollar, you see a weaponizing of the dollar, you see the United States saying, hey, we thank you, but we're going green. And so we're going to start to minimize the amount of oil and the attention we pay to this relationship.
And then Andy,
are incentivizing.
Don't forget also then the weaponization of the SWIFT system against Russia and the seizing of Russia's Western denominated assets in Western central banks, right? So
that's exactly it. That is what got the ball rolling. And that they didn't just sanction, they actually confiscated the assets and are using it to rebuild the Ukraine. So when you talk about weaponization of the dollar and antagonization of the Saudi kingdom, pushing back against them, well, those would be the two things that I think you would want to do immediately if you wanted to lose the world reserve status. And follow Jared Bernstein's plan. So who's behind it? Look, I mean, look at Bill Gates. Look at all the patents he has right now on the new payment system related to a digital currency and the ID 2020 and the combination of your health records, your bank accounts, the ability to pay with Visa. All of these things, you know, you're looking at some of the wealthiest people in the world, like Bill Gates, like the World Bank, that are certainly, I think, their fingerprints are all over this. And, you know, I don't know that we'll ever know who really is pulling the strings, but I will tell you that if you take a step back and you look at the fact that the BIS reclassified gold as the world's only other tier one reserve asset, and in the same breath told everyone that by 2025, every country has to have an operational central bank digital currency. And, you know, you go all the way back to 2010, there was a report by the United Nations who called for the dollar to lose its world reserve status. So, look, there are some powerful people pulling the strings. You know, obviously, I'm sorry?
I was just going to say, and excuse my choice of words, but is destroying the dollar kind of the required foreplay to bring in the central bank digital currencies?
Well, I think it is. I think there has to be an event. I really do. And look, the 2022 balance sheet just came out, or the statement of account for the U.S. Government, and it showed a $155 trillion debt. You can Google this; it'll pop right up. $155 trillion in debt, most of which is owed to the American public. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and government military pensions make up 125 plus trillion if they're being forthright with us. And so keep that in mind as we talk about why I say this, right? So the asset base that the United States has is a sickening $5 trillion, and even a more sickening, the largest asset of the U.S. is student debt, representing over 40% of the asset base. You take that out of the equation, we have just over 3.5 trillion in assets up against 155 trillion in debt. So that's the premise. But the question being, how do you pay that off? And as interest rates go higher, it becomes much more onerous. The Federal Reserve right now has $1 trillion in unrealized losses on their balance sheet, and they continue to raise rates. So this is a crazy game, but here's the deal. How do you pay that off? Well, you can inflate, and that's the way that all governments have done, even going all the way back to Roman times when they clipped the edges of coins. And that's why there are ridges on coins right now, so that you can't counterfeit the diameter of the coin. You can produce your way out. Well, we know that's not going to happen as we've offshored so much of our manufacturing and our productive capacity. You can increase taxes. Don't know how well that's going to go over. Or you can find a villain. And when I started to feel this way, Mike, was when, if you've studied Austrian economics for 5 minutes, you know that inflation is always a monetary event. It's an increase in the money supply. We printed more money in the last 4 years than in the history of the United States prior to it, creating massive distortions and misallocations. And Biden gets up on stage and says it's Putin's inflation. And I'm like, damn it, they're looking for a villain. That is not true. They're looking for a villain. So option number 4, find a villain. And you antagonize Saudi Arabia, you weaponize the dollar and the SWIFT system, and you make everyone in the world think, hey, maybe we're next. Where you end up on the wrong side of the U.S. and their agenda, they'll do this to us too. And I think it's much easier to blow up the system by doing this, because what would happen if Saudi Arabia, who stood on a podium with all of the other 13 OPEC countries on the Belt Road, with their arms around the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the members of the BRICS and the Eurasian Economic Union, this is 85 to 90% of human population, and they're not going green. And they sit with their arms around each other and say to the U.S., hey, thank you so much. We're here with our brothers and sisters, all of us that are OPEC producers, and our new union of countries that are joining together that aren't going green. And we respect what you've done for us. And this would be a real nice way of them saying it, but hey, we're no longer going to take dollars for oil. And not only that, in the back of their mind, they're thinking, well, they're inflating the currency. The bond market has been a wreck. Why do we want to attach our wagon to a country that is moving away from our what gives us our standard of living? They've signed executive orders proving that. They've weaponized the dollar. They'll do it against us too. So now that we're being protected by two of the three largest nuclear arsenals in the world and 85% of human population, we're no longer going to take oil or dollars for oil. And maybe it's the new BRICS settlement currency. Maybe it's the yuan, whatever it is. There's your Operation Sandman moment right there, when everyone dumps dollars just like that.
Yeah, exactly. What people need to understand, I mean, that was an excellent explanation, but the history of dollar dominance over the world is it's tied to the projection of military power, right? So if we didn't have the post-World War II military that could run around the world and threaten everybody and actually make good on those threats, like we saw with Libya and Iraq and so on, and many other countries, then the dollar would not be the current world reserve currency, as you well know. So the failure of the United States in Afghanistan is one thing that you pointed out, but I'm watching the failure of the United States in Ukraine as well. And if that ends in embarrassment for the United States, which it looks like it is, I mean, Russia, the so-called counteroffensive against Russia has failed again and again and again. The United States has run out of ammunition, run out of artillery units. Ukraine's sadly running out of men who have been unfairly exploited by the West. And it looks to me like the U.S. is going to have to run away in shame, and that's going to cause these other BRICS adjacent nations, let's say, to say to themselves, well, look, the U.S. military is even weaker than we thought. They can't protect us. Russia's got hypersonic missiles.
Right.
China's got hypersonic missiles. China's building aircraft carriers. They can patrol the Pacific. And Russia's got the most powerful land war machine on the planet, as we just saw. We're gonna hitch our horse to Russia and China is what they're. I mean, I'm saying the same thing you're saying, but I'm just bringing in the fact that the military projection of power is what causes a currency to be accepted throughout history, right?
Correct. And there's no coincidence that they are building the BRICS Naval Alliance, which is, it's interesting, the countries that are being brought together for this naval alliance, such as Saudi Arabia and Iran. Well, I didn't think they liked each other, except China brokered a peace deal between them recently where they're now building embassies in each other's country. Wow. We also have Iraq, but I didn't think Iran and Iraq liked each other, except China brokered another deal where they've just built the first ever railway between the two countries. So the countries that are building this new naval alliance are Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Oman, Qatar, India. You know, you're putting all of these countries together in the respect that, look, my enemy's enemy is my friend. The rallying cry is breaking free from just that. The not only the hegemony, but also that military type of influence. Instead of coming in and using coercion and bullying people into doing things, the way that this alliance is working is that China, as an example, with the Belt Road, they're going into all of these countries and they are industrializing them. They are building railways and bridges and maritime channels. They're building oil refineries and gold mines and silver mines, and they are helping these countries bring their goods, their commodities to the market while building industrialization and industrializing their and modernizing their infrastructure, and then giving them a seat at the table to this new growing union. And when you talk about how bad it would be, I mean, look, France was right there with us in 2022, putting on these sanctions against Russia. And, you know, Macron just got back recently from visiting Xi Jinping. He struck a 51-point trade agreement with China, ranging from 5G to military engagement. And they just paid for a massive liquid natural gas deal, paying in yuan. This is France. So we're getting to a point where even our allies, Mexico has joined or applied to BRICS. So our allies are people who we could count on, United Arab Emirates, Turkey. You know, these countries are choosing sides. And, you know,
but Andy,
think, yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying, but if the U.S. is trying to dismantle its own position as holding the world reserve currency or producing the world reserve currency, then surely people in the U.S., in the Biden regime, the State Department, realize that if you lose that status, which is happening, then you also lose the ability to print and print and print without consequences.
Well, not necessarily, because the number 2 economic advisor to the United States government is Lael Brainerd, and she's a modern monetary theorist
Yeah,
who
here
wants
comes
to
the
go
MMT
directly.
magic, right?
Yes, and she wants. So, how do you create that event? Well, here's the event. So everyone dumps dollars, and because of oil, the dollars come flooding home. And as a result of the dollars flooding home, creating a tsunami of inflation, interest rates have to spike. And instead of it, everyone pointing to Powell and the Federal Reserve and Janet Yellen, you guys did this. No, it wasn't us. It was Xi Jinping and Putin and
Right.
OPEC. They did it to us. And as a result, interest rates spiked to the moon, which is inversely correlated, that event, to the value of stocks and bonds and real estate, and everything would collapse at the same time, including the banks, which are highly over leveraged, which plays right into both of these advisors' premise. One wants to get rid of the banks and go right from the Federal Reserve, modern monetary theory, and the others, Bernstein wants to get rid of the reserve currency. Now, here's my reasoning for saying that is, a lot of people out there, you guys wouldn't take the central bank digital currency unless they had no choice. And how do you have no choice? Well, you blow everything up and you have a villain to point to for doing it, but have no fear. We know your 401k just was obliterated, and your real estate and your bond portfolio just been obliterated. Have
Your
no
federal
fear.
pension.
Lael Brainerd is here with her new central bank digital currency that the BIS said everyone has to have by 2025. She is the point person for Fed now. She's worked with MIT when she was at the Fed in developing the CBDC, and sign the CBDC will make you whole. To me, that's how they and why they usher in this reset. Because how else do you pay off the debt? But the interesting thing is, the majority of the debt that we owe is to the American public. And so Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, government military pensions, don't worry, take the CBDC, you'll have all you need. You'll get your Social Security, you'll get your Medicaid, you'll get your pensions, and it's mostly to us. So
But Andy,
think that, yes.
Will they still take care of my transition surgery? That's kind of...
Yeah. No, and that's the other thing. And I'm glad you say that, because that's the other thing I've been focusing on. It's not just the military might. It's not just the petrodollar. It's the full faith and credit, right, of the U.S. government. So we just got through saying that the United States government is insolvent. In terms of banana republics, we're 130% debt to GDP, where we are typically, by definition, a banana republic. But what's the difference between us and a South American country who jails its political opposition? I don't know. That sounds interesting, because, look, people tied together inner tubes with string and floated across the ocean for justice and liberty and honesty. And I wonder how much of that is being looked at differently by our foes and by the rest of the world, even the people who looked at the United States as the shining beacon of liberty, who has this fascination with transgenderism, to your point, with cancel culture, with censoring, where you're not on YouTube, Mike, and that's because you can't talk about some of these things without risk of being censored. To me, that was the biggest concern of 2020, not the pandemic. And to me, what bothers me more than anything right now is the weaponization of our justice system and of the FBI. And you don't have to be a Republican or a Trump supporter. If you're just honest with yourself, you have to say, look, it's not being administered equally. And if you wanted to blow things up, well, let's rehash. Weaponize the dollar, freak everyone out, push away Saudi Arabia, inflate the heck out of your currency, to destabilize the country from the inside with black versus white versus red versus blue versus trans versus straight versus rich versus poor. I mean, there is no unity anymore. There were the way there were in 1942, when we're trying to dig ourselves out of World War II and build back a new country, or a country that has just gone through a world war. People are different now, and I don't think there's any coincidence to that. I call it logarithmic decay, little by little by little, then all at once. And That's all of these topics have been thrown at us little by little, starting in 2020, and now it's just part of the fabric, which is ripping away at what I believe the fabric is of this country, and it's not lost on our foes. I promise.
So talk to us again. Sorry to interrupt, but just in the interest of time, talk to us about how gold and silver help insulate people from some of the ramifications of this. Because remember, this show is about decentralization, and I'll share with you. We've had discussions about this, but I announced on this show a couple months ago that I am in the process of taking all of my after-tax savings of my personal nature and evacuating them out of the banking system, the fiat currency system, and I'm going into only three things, and it's gold and silver and crypto. And they each have strengths and weaknesses and so on. But gold and silver, of course, you have self-custody, whereas I don't trust anything in the banks anymore because we've seen they keep putting more limits. It's less useful. You can't withdraw when you want. You can't wire when you want. They ask questions. They freaking interrogate you. What do you need this money for? It's my money. What, for God's sake? I gave it to you. Give it back. But no, they don't want to. So talk to us about gold and silver and how it reinforces these principles of personal liberty and survival.
Yeah, remember, it's not really your money. You're an unsecured general creditor, the way that the laws are right now.
That's right.
But you're right. You're right. I mean, I think that's certainly something that's on a lot of people's mind. But how does gold and silver work? I mean, look, when the Bank of International Settlements reclassified gold as the only other tier one riskless asset as good as cash in 2019, it became very obvious to me that gold would have a central role in what comes next. And I guess you can simply say this, that when the most well-funded and well-informed traders on the planet and the most sophisticated, that being the central banks, have bought more gold over the last 18 months than at any time ever, it speaks to me. When you see the exchanges that are being bled dry, the COMEX, the LBMA, the ETFs, the Shanghai Gold Exchange, all of them are experiencing massive record withdrawals. India imported 304 million ounces of silver. That's much more than is in the COMEX completely and totally, and nearly 10 times more than is in the registered category on COMEX, that being the bars that are eligible for delivery. And what I'm simply saying is, for a very long time, the West suppressed the price of gold to support their bond market, to make the dollar seem better than it was. And when you maintain a low interest rate policy, you have to step on the price of gold. It's called Gibson's paradox. It's the inverse relationship between real interest rates and the price of gold. And so if you're going to maintain this illusion of low interest rates to create an illusion of wealth in the United States and in the West, you have to step on the canary, and that's the price of gold. So people say, well, why isn't gold and silver going up if the central banks are accumulating it and the commercial banks? And the reason is simply they are using the suppression of the Western markets against them. They're standing there no matter what the price is and say, we don't care, we'll take delivery. You are seeing massive deliveries off of the exchanges that is betraying or are betraying the price suppression of the commodities. But it goes beyond that, too. I mean, it's not just gold and silver. The London Metals Exchange saw 90% of its zinc and 75% of its aluminum delivered off the exchange last year. So I guess what I'm simply saying is this. Gold and silver are money. They're wealth. They have been for 5,000 years. They have outlived every pandemic, the German hyperinflation, 2 world wars, the Great Depression, everything the world's ever thrown at it. It's wealth. And the big money understands that. And I think when you just simply realize that the most sophisticated bank on the planet said it's equal to dollars, it's equal to cash, and then the banks, regardless of price, go on a massive buying spree and repatriation spree. They have been accumulating their gold, taking delivery of it off of the exchanges, off of the Bank of England and the New York Fed. They are removing any and all counterparty risk, and they're doing so very quietly and methodically, so as not to corner themselves or crowd themselves out of the trade they're trying to make, which is de-dollarization. So what is gold and silver? It's not an investment. It's wealth. You own enough of it, you'll be wealthy. But it is not something that I'm telling people to accumulate to get wealthy. I'm telling people to accumulate it because if you are fully invested in dollars, I believe you're destined ultimately to go broke when this all plays out, and it will happen in the blink of an eye.
That's right.
So that's why
How
I
long,
tell people.
Andy, how long do you, how much longer do we have before we experience hyperinflation in your point of view?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about this August 22nd meeting in Johannesburg about ultimately the BRICS issuing a commodity-backed currency. And there's been a lot of pushback against that. I had a couple of cocktails with James Rickards a couple of weeks ago and talked with him a lot about this, and I'll share with you what he said if you'd like. But to me, the bigger development at BRICS, at the meeting in Johannesburg, is that the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union are expected to join the BRICS Union. That is what Rickard said. And it's interesting, if you Google how many countries have applied or expressed interest in BRICS, you'll find 41 in most articles, but the list is only 25 long. And so where are the other 16 countries? Well, you take both of those organizations, strip out the countries that have already expressed interest or are in BRICS, and you get damn near 41 when added to BRICS. So you're talking literally, a sphere of 75 to 80% of population before you add the Belt Road Initiative to it, which is 150 plus countries that are growing. So the point of it is that to pick a time when it's going to happen, I don't know. And this is what I mean by logarithmic decay. Everything in this country, from social, moral, political, economical, and outside the country, it's slowly going down, 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 and then it's like a waterfall. When does that happen? When does Operation Sandman happen? When do these countries all in unison dump dollars? When that happens, there'll be no time to react, and I guarantee you it'll be on a Sunday night, Monday morning. You will have no time to be reactionary. You have to reluctantly prepare for this right now, because if you don't, you will be swept in with everyone else who it will be a leveling of the playing field. I don't care how wealthy you are. If we see that type of hyperinflation and interest rates spike to the moon as a result, the consequences are very problematic, especially because all of the money that's been created and the suppression of interest rates over the last several years has created distortions in asset prices. They will fall from an abnormally high level.
But people have had warning, because we had in February and March of this year, we had the failure of First Republic and Silicon Valley Bank and some others. And at that time, or after that, Janet Yellen testified and said, we can't say which banks we're going to bail out in the future for amounts over 250K. And it's just going to be a case-by-case basis, and we're probably not going to bail out the small and mid-sized banks and so on. And it's, to anybody paying attention, you just saw a foreshadow earlier this year of the big cascading banking collapse that's coming. If you are still thinking that you're going to keep your life savings in fiat currency, in dollars, in dollar-run banks in the United States, you're on a suicide mission, is all I can say. I mean, it's as if, I don't know, like watching a storm come and the lightning struck 10 miles away, and then the lightning struck 5 miles away, and then you're still sitting there saying, well, the lightning's not going to come here. Of course it is. It's coming.
Yeah, and what does Lael Brainerd want? She wants to cull the banks and go modern monetary theory. I agree, but what's missing out of that statement, which is exactly dead on, spot on, is that the Dodd-Frank law that went into effect in 2009 after the great financial crisis said bailouts are illegal. So, you're going to get to a point where the JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs will not be able to continue to absorb all of this, and the FDIC will not be able to bail out these banks. In fact, the FDIC only had $125 billion in assets at the end of 2022, in 18 trillion in deposits, and yet they borrowed $174 billion. They borrowed $174 billion from the Fed to backstop the orderly transition from Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. And you would think that we would learn from these mistakes, that we would do all that we could to embrace the world reserve currency. Yet, since the end of the raising the debt ceiling, right? We've added $1.85 trillion to the debt this year in just over 6 months. 1.85 trillion. It took 209 years to do the first 1.85 trillion. We are accumulating debt so fast that it's not even funny. That the Congressional Budget Office came out and said that we will add $5 billion a day to the debt pile every single day for the next 10 years. So little by little, I mean, you look, everything we are doing reeks of mismanagement and decay. And so, yeah, I think that keeping your money in the bank is suicide, but that's exactly what they want. They want a bank bail-in. And imagine a bank like U.S. Bank or Truist, two of the banks that are on this next list. You know, Moody's came and downgraded the banks after Fitch downgraded the U.S. debt. Moody's downgraded 10 banks and said there's another 6 on the hit list, and one is U.S. Bank and one is Truist. Now, I say these banks because that was my bank in Minneapolis, and when I moved to Florida, I immediately opened up a bank with Truist. I'm like, oh, great, there's my luck. Well, one of those banks fails and is bailed in, meaning anything over the scam 250,000, which is, you know, again, 125 billion backing 18 trillion ain't going to work. But even if you did get your reimbursement of 250,000, you know, what are you going to do if the thing turns upside down and you have millions of dollars? Which brings me to one other point. Do you know when in the inquiry, the House inquiry on Silicon Valley Bank, for 3 years, the top 10 accounts for 3 years held $14 billion in a checking account in Silicon Valley Bank? Where were the regulators?
Bonkers.
Where was the FDIC? Where was the risk management? Back then, interest rates on a checking account were 0. And with only 250,000, you have to wonder, was this intended? Was this intended to get the ball rolling and we're just going to freak everyone out, but don't worry, we'll bail you back in?
Yeah, but Andy, I gotta even put some blame on the companies that were holding those deposits. I mean, if you had $1 billion in a checking account, you'd be insane not to buy like $100 million worth of gold or something. I mean, Todd, right? If you had $1 billion, how much gold and silver and probably privacy crypto would you be buying? Would you leave $1 billion sitting in a bank in dollars? No. Not on your life, man.
Of course not. Of course not. And this whole thing, it boggles the imagination. But when you see a bank get bailed in and everyone loses, you know, we added almost 14,000 clients in 45 days in March and April. And
that must have been insane.
4 years worth of business, 4 years, and in terms of clients. And
did you sleep?
No, I didn't. Nor did anyone in my company. We're working 18, 20 hours a day. And I just kept telling people, if you don't understand that I've done this for 33 years and this is on steroids, anything I've ever seen to the nth degree, you know, this is an opportunity. So everyone was working hard, but that's with a bail out. How about a bail in, where one of these banks and everything just is vaporized? And that's the kind of event I think people would need in order to really embrace and welcome a central bank digital currency. But that's what I'm talking about having to create this event in order to do it. Not only do you default, but you're defaulting mostly on the American public, who, now that you have a central bank digital currency or a modern monetary theorist chirping in your ear, Lael Brainard, who was at the Treasury, the Fed, and now, number 2, advising Biden, you know, is it intended? I don't know. Or are we just that stupid to think that what we are doing in-house and around the world is not going to have some major ramifications? And I know it's a weird thing to say, but, you know, I guess they came to the conclusion, if I had to guess, how do we get out of this mess that we've created? We've sucked as much out of this as we possibly can. Either we default, we inflate, or we find a villain. And it's Putin and Xi Jinping and OPEC. And when they dump the dollar for settlement in oil, because we told Saudi Arabia we're going green, then everything collapses. The dollar goes to the interest rates go to the moon. The dollar collapses. Everything collapses. And now you come in with your new system that everyone says, yeah, I'll take it. It's better than losing everything.
Yeah, I think you just described exactly how this is being engineered. It's theater with an intended outcome, like never let a crisis go to waste, right? So the crisis is engineered in order to corral people into the control grid surveillance system. And this is why, by the way, gold and silver, and as you know here on the show, we're fans of certain privacy crypto. But these three asset classes have in common is that you have self-custody. The government can't see how much you have, and it's not easy for governments to take it from you in any of these cases. Now, sure, if they show up with enough, like men with guns, and say, give us all your gold, yeah, if they're going to do that, but there's not enough personnel to run around the country doing that to people. So you have it in your hands, it's yours. You know, possession is 9/10 of the law, especially in most of our cases. You know, we've buried it somewhere on some giant piece of land and no one will ever find it. So good luck confiscating it, right? So,
and I don't think they'll confiscate. You know, a lot of people talk about that. And who's the administrator of the largest silver trust in the world, SLV? Oh, yeah, it's that company that paid $920 million fine to the Justice Department for manipulating the metals market, JP Morgan. They are the custodian of the world's largest silver trust. And who is the custodian of GLD, which is third or fourth or fifth largest stockpile of gold in the world? Oh, yeah, it's that bank that probably paid more fines than anyone. It's HSBC. So I think instead of confiscating gold and risking that backlash, it would be much easier for them to come in and just take the ETFs, all of them, and to let the pimple on the elephant's ass, that be the people that own physical gold and silver in this country, continue to hold it. It doesn't amount to enough to go door to door to door and knock on people's doors who have NRA stickers on their window. Maybe they confiscate IRA metal. Maybe they confiscate things that are easier to scoop up, but I don't think that they would activate eminent domain unless we had no other choice. Now, in a great reset, who knows? Maybe all bets are off. I don't know. It's
but
a
at
fair
that
question.
but at that point, those of us who invested heavily in lead as well, probably going to be sitting pretty.
Well, that's the point. So it'd be much easier to come in and take, you know, this massive stockpile of gold and silver held by the commercial banks that suppress the price with a pink bow wrapped around it without having to face that backlash if they ever wanted to regain global credibility. And when you look at the way that the rest of the world is telling their citizens to own gold and to buy gold, the fact that it's tier one, well, these are all very relevant topics. The fact that Russia removed a VAT tax of nearly 20% so their public can buy it, and the prodding of the Chinese to their people to own it. I think these are all relevant, fair points. And
can you
know, yeah.
And I'm sorry I keep interrupting you, but
no, that's okay.
Just in the interest of time, I want to make sure you cover the issue of so-called junk silver or constitutional silver, because you know, we part of the decentralization philosophy is to do a lot of local business. So get your food locally, grow it, trade it, barter it, seeds and whatever, and support local farmers markets and CSAs. And isn't it true that we could very likely be facing many scenarios in which you need constitutional silver in order to carry out local trades because nobody trusts the currency, or nobody wants to keep repricing, you know, the green beans in the failing currency prices that have to be adjusted every 12 hours because the inflation is totally out of control. So talk to us just for a little bit, if you would, about junk silver.
It's interesting you said that last point. My dad's best friend is a car buff, and I remember him calling him about 15, 20, whenever the Argentine peso collapsed. He was in a Ferrari dealership in Argentina, and they were erasing the price. Was written in chalk every few minutes to put a new price because it kept changing. But yeah, as far as junk silver, it's also worth mentioning there's, I don't know, close to 20 states, Idaho, Alaska, Wyoming, Nevada, Utah, North Carolina, Oklahoma, where Texas, and the list goes on and on. These states are passing legislation for gold and silver to be used as legal tender if they are a coin minted by a sovereign government, past or present, to be used in legal tender in these states. There are states that are waking up. And so, yeah, having either American silver eagles or the pre-1965 constitutional silver dimes and quarters and half dollars, that is the most, it gives you the greatest utility, the greatest flexibility. If you take a dollar's denomination of pre-65 silver, which for barter, there's nothing better, and any way that you can make it, 2 half dollars, 1 half dollar and 5 dimes, 10 dimes, 4 quarters, 2 quarters and 5 dimes, any way you can make a dollar, you have, if they were brand new, 0.723 ounces of pure silver. The industry has settled on 0.715 due to wear. These coins are old, or 60 plus years old and older. So they say a little bit can get worn off. So a dollar's denomination is 0.715 ounces, or 14 dimes is almost exactly 1 ounce of pure silver. And the benefit of junk silver over a 1 ounce silver eagle, well, the 1 ounce silver eagle is, it's pretty, it's shiny, it's people like it, and oh, that's so nice. But when you're talking about junk silver, you can have 14 transactions for every one that you get with a 1 ounce silver coin. So yeah, if everyone should have at least a quarter bag or a half a bag. Half a bag would be 362.5 ounces, I want to say, and or 357.5. 715 ounces in a full bag, $1,000 face value of pure silver. And you have a full bag of junk silver, 10,000 dimes or 4,000 quarters or 2,000 halves or any mix thereof. You have great barter ability and utility should it ever come to that. And especially if you live in any of these states that have passed legislation to allow, Arkansas just did as well, to allow gold and silver to be used for all debts, public and private, including even paying your property tax. So yeah, it's a good question.
Wow. Andy, what would a full bag cost of the dimes?
Good question.
It's going to vary on the spot price and the premiums, right?
Yeah, I'll give you I don't know at the moment. Let me look 1 second. It won't take me long, probably 10 seconds. Sure. It's going to be roughly... of course, I got to turn off airplane mode because I didn't want anyone to call me.
No, if you turn it on now, you're going to be interrupted 1,000 times.
So right now it would be roughly, so ballpark, what is spot right now? So 20 plus 20 equals times 0.715. So roughly probably about $18.50 per dollar face value would be my guess, or 18,500, somewhere in that range, assuming my math is correct, on a full bag of junk silver. So, it's interesting. For the last 4 years, the premiums have been $6 to $8 to $9 higher than that on this. And I find it ironic that, we're kind of in the eye of the hurricane. We got blasted in March and April on the front end of it, and you see all these things happening, and now it's gone by, and we're in the eye where the sun came out, and people have forgotten, that we had 3 of the 4 largest bank failures in the history of this country, and things are getting worse. The trailing edge is coming. You see a bank bail in, you'll see premiums on this stuff go parabolic, and the same thing is true with the Silver Eagles, where, they've been $13, $14 over the price of silver for the last 4 years. They have come way, way, way down. And, as far as I'm concerned, all it will take is one event and you will see premiums go parabolic again, as there just isn't enough supply to meet a demand of the public.
It's when everybody forgets about the bank failures, that's when it's the perfect time to buy, because the premiums are so low right now. It's really the deal of spanning many years. Like, this is probably the best deal anybody's going to see in terms of even 1 ounce silver rounds or constitutional silver, for sure. But yeah, go ahead, Todd.
I was going to say, and Andy, people could go to milesfranklin.com to be able to acquire their junk silver, right?
Yeah, so our website is up. It is still being tooled with some of the states that are taxing still. Our tax software is being implemented as we speak. So some of the states we're not able to purchase on some of the states. But what you can do is send us an email at info@milesfranklin, and we will send you info@milesfranklin.com. Say that Mike Adams sent me. We will send you a special price list, one that offers very, very, very good pricing, above the $10,000 limit that we can do here on the website. And we will be able to get you any product you like. We'll work with you. We'll answer your questions. It's non-obligatory when you send us that email. If you have questions, please put in there. Please contact me. I have questions on IRAs, or I have questions on junk silver, whatever it is. We'll send you an updated, better value price list. much lower prices than you'll find on our website, and we'll answer any questions that you would have. But yes, you can go to milesfranklin.com.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at your website right now. I can't believe you've got these bull mint rounds of 1 ounce silver, $250 over spot. I mean, because it was only 6 months ago that this would have been $15 over spot, I think.
Everything was parabolic, and you couldn't get anything, and there were massive delivery delays. And so this is the best availability, the lowest price I've seen since 2019.
Yeah.
And what's really confusing to me, and it doesn't make sense to me, we see a massive shortage on Comex and industrial size bars, where right now the open interest on Comex is, 20, 30 times greater than the number of bars that are there. Yet it's been bled down to the second lowest level in the history of the Comex market, the lowest level ever in the 140-year history of the LBMA. We're seeing a wholesale shortage, and it's depleting. And it will trickle down to what is right now the most flush, lowest premium retail market I've seen in 4 years. It's not something that is sustainable unless we continue to see, the dollar all of a sudden rally and gold and silver collapse, and everything just becomes hunky-dory again. If you don't think that's the case, then with all the objectivity that I can offer, honest to God, it's the best value I've seen in a very long time.
And let me add too, as because this show is all about full transparency. So let me just make sure this is on the record, folks. Andy Schectman and Miles Franklin have not paid to be on this show, and in addition, we don't receive any percentage of sales of gold and silver. And it's just, we bring Andy on because he's the best in the business, knows what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. And gold and silver, I think, need to be considered as part of a safety portfolio. So, Miles Franklin is a great place to get connected if it's right for you. So I just want to be clear, we're not being paid to have you on, Andy. We honor you for your knowledge and the fact that you've just been correct again and again and again, and you've helped tremendous numbers of people over the years, and we thank you for doing that.
I appreciate that. I really, really do. And I'm sure there are a lot of companies out there that would like your endorsement and would offer to pay you to be on this show.
Oh, yes, there are.
I'm sure there are. And I get that. So just being here is an honor. And look, I've done this for 33 years. We just eclipsed 9 billion in sales. I've had a wonderful career.
Wow.
I'm not planning on going anywhere. I don't need to do this. I do it because I feel compelled to do it. And it's something that I've searched and racked my brain in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling and trying to rationalize it. And I don't know why I put myself out there. And in 2019 and 2020, when I was talking about this, nobody was.
That's right.
And my wife said to me, she said, Andy, you keep saying the same thing on these shows. I said, but honey, no one's talking about it. She says, how do you know you're right? I said, I just know I'm right. I see the crumbs. You can see what's happening. And I took a chance because, you go out on YouTube and you do an interview, you're out there on the record. And I'm proud of what I have done. I'm proud of the path that I have tried to navigate. And I don't think that this story is anywhere near over yet. In fact, I think the final chapters will be the most compelling. And if you're on the wrong side of it, potentially the most disruptive. So, I think this is one of these deals where we're talking a once in a lifetime shift away from what all of us know to what could be a new system where the dollar isn't the king of the hill anymore. And it's not going away. Maybe not. Maybe the way that we know it is. Maybe the cash is going away, but there's going to be some very big changes. And when the moment happens, when the switch gets flipped, like your Operation Sandman, it's going to, if you're not a contrarian, I believe you are going to be a victim. And I just think that you need to take a position right now that things are changing and the world is moving away from us. And the decisions that our politicians and our leaders have made and continue to make is accelerating and incentivizing this event. And,
exactly.
It would be easier for me to believe maybe I'm overreacting if all we were talking about was the BRICS and Saudi Arabia. But when you look at what is happening here inside this country and the tearing away of the fabric of what made this country, liberty and justice for all, even though we don't say the Pledge of Allegiance in elementary school anymore, That in and of itself, to me, I was listening to someone real quick, and I know we're running out of time, but today talking about the fact that the bond market, that's what makes the dollar the world reserve, because we're trusted. We're trusted. And I wonder how much of that trust is being eroded or has already eroded amongst the world, looking at the way things are happening inside this country and the way that we are treating former President Trump in relation to the Biden family. And look, the difference between a South American banana republic and our banana republic being 130% debt to GDP is, are we going to jail our main political challenger over this? I mean, is that where we've gone? And I think these types of things all fit together. And that's where I'm coming from. And to ask, is this intended? If it's not, then our leaders are beyond ignorant.
And let me add, and our military leaders are men pretending to be women wearing high heels. It's regardless of what people think about transgenderism and so on, because I'm kind of a libertarian, if you want to dress up in women's clothing in your own bedroom, go for it, have fun. But to put that out as the military leadership makes us the laughingstock of the world. It really does.
I agree. Couldn't agree anymore. 100%. And that's just it.
Okay, well,
that's just it.
We need to wrap it up right there.
Focusing on the wrong things.
Yeah, exactly. But you have been brilliant as usual, Andy, and we want to thank you for being here. I know Todd even has more questions for you, so we're just going to have to do that in another follow-up. But the website is milesfranklin.com, folks. If gold and silver are something that you want to consider for your asset portfolio, and I will mention the reason I've been a longtime fan of gold and silver is because also in cases of power grid failures where crypto doesn't work, gold and silver always work because they're physical, and gold and silver are fully fungible because there's never any history tied to one particular coin. And in terms of junk silver, they're very divisible, can be used for a lot of local trade and barter. So I just want to point that out, and thank you so much, Andy, for joining us today. It's been a lot of fun hearing you speak here.
Mike and Todd, it's been wonderful to be here. I can't wait to come back again. Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor, and I'll look forward to picking up where we left off next time.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, Andy.
Take care, Andy, and reach out to me on the app, like I mentioned. We'll chat over the weekend.
Sounds good. You take care.
Info at milesfranklin.com, everyone.
That's
info at milesfranklin.com. Say Mike sent me, and you'll get white gloves treatment from.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, guys. Have a good weekend. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Andy.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
I wonder what happens if people say Todd sent me. Do they get trashed or what? Or is it better treatment? Like, I don't know.
They get sent to the bonus hole.
Yeah, they get sent. It's like double price for you. No. This has been great. Todd, let's take a break and like a 5-minute break and come back, and then we'll do the commentary on the other side.
Perfect.
Join the official discussion channel for this show on Telegram at t.me/decentralized TV, where you can ask questions or offer suggestions of who we should interview next. Also be sure to subscribe to the email newsletter on decentralized.tv, where you'll be alerted about 1 day in advance of each new upcoming episode, before it gets published. On decentralized.tv, you'll also find links to our video channels and social media channels across all platforms, including Brighteon, Rumble, BitChute, Twitter, Truth Social, and more. Check it all out at decentralized.tv. All right, well, Todd, how was that for getting to meet Andy Schectman for the first time, huh?
Wow.
Yeah.
There's no need for an after party, Mike. It's
not really. There's not much we can add to that, actually.
No, the only thing is I need to take a drink.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So redpillprints.com/DTV. They've got the Decentralized TV hats. Oh, there, it's in focus. The hat, the coffee mugs, and they've got the shirts. Where is it? Here it is. DTV T-shirt right here. So if you want to dress up in Decentralized TV gear, you can do it now. Just go to redpillprints.com/DTV, and they do accept cryptocurrency. And no, they didn't pay us to say this.
Nope.
We don't have any business relationship with them except just to help promote them. And if you have a business out there and you accept cryptocurrency that's privacy oriented, because we're all about privacy, let us know, and we might also help plug your business as well. But today's talk was about mostly gold and silver. So, wow.
I'm so glad that he brought back up, in my mind anyway, the junk silver, because what a great solution that is. I have been doing money where my mouth is, and as you have been getting my after tax savings out of the bank and into private crypto, into gold, into silver. But a long time ago, I bought a bag of junk silver, and I forgot that I have.
Oh, you forgot?
As well.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
it's fun to rediscover a bag of silver.
Yeah, that I haven't thought about it for a while.
Yeah.
And so, but they're quarters, right?
Right.
So I'm like, I want some dimes.
Yep. I've got a bag of dimes, and that's not like a drug thing. They're actual dimes in a bag. It's not a dime bag, but a bag of dimes.
Did you get a dime bag, Mike?
No, it's a bag of silver dimes.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Andy is just such a wealth of information. It was a fascinating interview.
Oh, yeah.
What was cool for me is that I spent probably about, I'd say, 8 hours total over the last week just listening to different interviews of his. And I really felt like we got in our 1 hour interview with him the combination of all 8 of those. So this is where you should come for your news, folks.
Well, we will have Andy back on to the extent that he's available, because he does a lot of interviews, but I know he loves to come on with us. And, part of my job is to keep the pace going here and keep hammering the questions. Sometimes I interrupt you or him. I apologize, but
it's all right.
The good news is we do get a lot of information in here, and sometimes, like if I hear Andy say something that we all know about, but I'm not sure the audience knows, I'll jump in and clarify that, like we were talking about Libya today.
Right. By the way, at the beginning, we were talking about mainstream TV should be called something else. I came up with it.
Yeah.
BS TV.
Yeah, BS TV, for sure.
Has a right ring to it.
You realize the mainstream media will keep everybody trapped in the dollar until the very end, when everybody loses everything, and then they'll blame.
Oh, you're so
Putin.
right.
Yeah, they'll tell you, oh, don't listen to the fear mongers. The dollar's fine. The dollar's safe. I have a book. I think it's called The Experts Speak, and it's a book that quotes all the experts from 1929 through 1932. As the markets were crashing and the depression was kicking in, the Great Depression, and all the experts were saying, everything's fine, this is a blip, this is a buying opportunity, the banks are healthy, like page after page of experts telling you how safe everything was. I'm thinking, that's Jim Cramer today.
That was gonna be my joke.
Really? I stole your joke? I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I didn't know Jim Cramer was that old.
Yeah, exactly. Good one. Yeah. No, but Jim Cramer, he's playing the same role right now. But if you're going to listen to a Jim, you should listen to Jim or James Rickards. Rickards gets it.
Yeah.
Remember, Rickards was I think he was part of the legal counsel at LTCM, Long-Term Capital Management, back in 1998, when that was the first too big to fail that was bailed out by the government. I think Rickards helped negotiate that bailout.
Wow.
And at the time, I think that bailout was only $5 billion or something in that realm. I forgot the exact numbers, but by today's standards, that'd be considered very small. But back then,
right.
$5 billion is just another day of aid to Ukraine right now. But back then, there was about to be a cascading currency-based collapse. I think it started with the Thai baht, and it involved currencies of Southeast Asia and Russia at the time. It was about to cascade across the banking system of the world and bring the whole thing down. And Rickards was there, and he helped negotiate that whole bailout, which set the tone for endless bailouts also, by the way. And here we are. I mean, eventually the bailouts fail.
Right.
It goes from too big to fail to too big to bail. And that
I'm a little nervous. He made me a little nervous that I have one account with Truist that every month religiously I just transfer a little bit of money just to cover my annual property taxes, because in this day and age, you really don't own your home, do you, folks?
No, you're renting it. Yeah.
and so you still have to pay your property taxes, which sucks. But and so that's the place I know if I just transfer it there, that it'll always come up to be about the amount that I owe. So that it's just for one purpose.
Yeah.
But he's making me nervous that if Truist is going to be the next bail-in bank, I might decide to close that account.
You know, as I've said, everybody today needs to have multiple bank accounts in case some of them go under. You need to have at least one big major bank account that you know is going to get bailed out. And then you need some smaller local or medium-sized banks, I believe, in order to be able to maneuver and move money around and get around wire transfer limits and things like that. But ultimately, as we've talked about on this show, I don't think it's wise to leave much of anything in the banks, but to have the accounts in case you need them.
Yeah.
And, you know, have the wires working and have the accounts connected to each other so you can transfer from bank A to bank B. But don't leave tons of money sitting around in those banks because it's going to vanish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Goodness.
I mean, you know, gold and silver help me sleep at night. You know what I mean? You feel very calm about it. Like even owning crypto. And I didn't own any crypto until earlier, you know, just the last few months when I started digging into the privacy coins. And I got to say, owning crypto makes me more nervous by far than owning gold.
Oh, really?
Because the crypto, I'm nervous about the prices and I'm like, you know, how much is it worth today? And gold, I just feel like it's there. I don't even care the dollars. It's ounces. It's just, there it is. It's not vanishing. You know, it's not going to melt away.
Yeah, you're right.
It's just,
you're right. Man, that blew my mind when Andy said that they just crossed the $9 billion in sales mark.
Oh yeah. For Miles Franklin. Yeah. They've done a lot of business.
That's
but
amazing.
remember the margins on gold and silver are pretty thin.
Yeah.
If it's an honest company. And I should say there are some real dishonest operators out there. I'm not going to name names, but I've got stories from people who overpaid 50%. There's a story, one guy paid $400,000 for gold from a dishonest company that's actually pretty widely promoted by certain conservatives out there, but the gold that he got was worth maybe $250.
Oh my goodness.
And he paid $400. Yeah. I mean, he just got taken.
Wow.
And the way they do that is they sell you all kinds of weird, odd sizes, like 1.5 ounce coins. And here's, you know, and from 12 different mints and 5 different sizes. And this one has slight historical value and you can't really figure it out. And, and they confuse people with that. There are a lot of dishonest gold and silver dealers out there.
Yeah.
You gotta go to trusted sources. I guess the same thing's true in crypto. Like you don't know you got to do your research, right? You got to make sure it's not some pump and dump thing going on.
You know, Mike, if you'll excuse me for 30 seconds, I just have to do a humble brag. Hold on.
What's that? Here, Todd's humble brag coming up.
Yeah. All right.
What is it?
You can call me boss.
Okay.
But yeah, I paid $400,000 for this.
Outside a rap concert or something?
Yeah, it's not very heavy though. And he sold that to me as a benefit. He's like, this is like $400,000 worth of gold, but it's the special gold that's not really heavy.
And you have the ultralight gold. That's the ethereal gold. I think elves make that, don't they? Is featured in Lord of the Rings.
This is elvish gold. Yes.
Mithril. Yeah. Mithril. Is that what it's called? The lightweight armor that the elves wear?
Elvish has left the building.
Elvish has left the building. That's why we call it the after party, folks, because we have too much fun.
That's right.
All right. Well, because the sad thing though is you might get robbed.
Nobody enjoys an after dinner or after party drink like us of water
with your gold. Now, Todd, you'll really impress me if you get a gold grill going, get a couple of gold front teeth plastered up with gold.
Oh, I ordered it, but it came in. It was so small. I was gonna do a whole thing on my crypto show. I was gonna act like I was a baller.
Really?
Well,
yeah. I have a dental secret to share with you and the audience.
Okay.
Every filling that I have in my mouth is gold. For real, because I had all the mercury removed because I'm a health conscious person. I had all the mercury removed. This is years ago. All of it replaced with gold, including a couple of gold crowns that I have in the back because I have all my original teeth. I like dentists freak out. I open my mouth and like so many teeth. They're like, wow, how do you have all these teeth? And then they're like, so much gold. It's like, oh, it's like shining from my mouth.
Now, did you do that as an investment in your mouth?
No, it's not.
You wanted to decentralize your gold holdings and put them in your mouth?
If I get in a bind, I'm only one set of pliers away from, having some liquid cash. No, it's just because gold's actually the healthiest thing to have in your mouth compared to any other metal that you would use. And then there's ceramic fillings now, which are fine, but gold is what it is. And by the way, gold, because it's malleable, the crown or whatever you have, it forms the shape of your bite. So gold actually forms to your teeth better than any other metal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What about the gold belly button ring? You've been kind of proud of that. Is that how big is that?
What? Let me check. Did I forget something? The gold belly button ring.
That's where you put your dog's leash when you take
oh, yeah, right. There are no piercings on this bud.
No piercings.
No piercings, no tattoos. None of that has ever happened. And I'm not about to start now. If I were to get a tattoo, I would only tattoo my seed phrase somewhere from my crypto wallet, but that's it.
Just do it right on your forehead backwards so you can look in the mirror.
Or if someone wants to hack me, they have to hold up a mirror and look at my head through the mirror and then read it. Yeah. No.
Andy, if you're still listening, we're sorry we brought down the excellence of the show to our level, but that's the after party.
We're going to get so much crap from Andy after this. He's going to text us like, it was such a high IQ show, and then you guys chimed in, a couple of clowns with your fake gold jokes. But we have fun. But let's wrap it up because we don't really have anything else serious to add other than just joking around. But folks, look, Andy Schectman, he knows his stuff. We're going to have him back on. And again, milesfranklin.com is the website where you can contact him or email info@milesfranklin.com and tell him Todd, the gold chain wearing rapper sent you.
Yes.
Or Mike with the gold teeth, something like that. And just
the golden boys.
Golden boys sent you. That's about it. So thanks, Todd. That was a really informative. If people watch this interview and they don't go out and start shoring up their assets, then they're crazy.
Yes. I know.
You got to diversify, folks.
You got an amazing history lesson and recent history lesson today. And if you have ears to hear, eyes to see, then you're going to go into action. Because otherwise, that melting ice cube of a fiat dollar that you're holding on to is just going to disappear.
Yep. By the day. All right. Well, thank you, Todd. It's been fun,
you, Mike.
as always. All right.
As always, everybody, thank you. Great to see you all. And until next time, cheers.
Oh, yeah. And thank you for watching, everybody. Of course, this is Mike Adams here, the founder of Brighteon. I'm laughing because my dog, Todd, is so smart. He's learned when it's the end of the show. He gets up and he does. Like he hears us saying that it's the end of the show. And he gets up and he starts walking around. He's ready to go. This dog is smarter than Joe Biden, I swear. I'm so amazed at his intelligence. He's starting to learn the language of the show. It's crazy. You know what?
So cool.
Have I ever shown him on the show? Let me bring him around.
You haven't.
Hey, bro, come on around. Come here. Come on up, bro. Say hi to everybody. There we go. How you doing,
buddy?
How you doing? Good boy.
Oh my
good boy today. Yeah, you having fun?
And I've been sitting there next to you.
You want the
in
DTV
studio.
hat? Oh, Oops. Oh, I'm afraid he's going to tear that thing up. Good boy, Ro. Okay.
But I was sitting there in studio with you, Mike, and I hit the table. He jumped up right in
pounced
the
up here.
center of us.
Yep.
And he was like not happy with me. So
he wants to play. Look at, come on up. Come on. There you go. See, he's ready. Lord of the Rings.
there you go.
That's
Great.
Has joined the show. He is ready to rock and roll. Golden Rings.
That's great. Oh, there you go.
Look at that.
An 8.
He is
It's an
ready.
8.
Ready to, yeah, he's trying
Looks
to
like
say
an 8.
something. He's communicating in integers, which is more
8
than Biden
gold
can do.
bars.
He's saying he's saying inflation is 8%. See, look, I'm telling you, he's smarter than the entire economic panel of the White House. Oh my gosh,
Love it.
He's about to go ballistic, so I better go play with him. All right.
Okay.
Thanks,
that was
Todd.
Fun, Mike.
Yep.
Appreciate you.
All right. Have a great evening. Bye bye.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.